Welcome to the Jones Zone, a podcast by Darryl and JJ Jones.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Jones Zone. Today we have Stacy Shepherd. Stacy runs a nonprofit called The Good Shepherd. Her last name is Shepherd, as you heard. Ironically, has to do with dogs. You know what, Stacy? Just tell us what you do, what your organization does.
Well, Darryl, thank you so much for talking to me today. I'm excited to talk to you, and I did a little bit of digging and watched some of your old episodes. So I love the energy that you bring into this space. So we are the Good Shepherds. We started as the Good Shepherds Incorporated. Well, we started as the Shepherd family. How about that? That goes all the way back. As the Shepherd family, we started a dog walking and training business called the Good Shepherds Incorporated. And after doing that for a couple of years, walking and training dogs, my daughter actually started the business. She's the lead walker, lead trainer. We gained good amount of prominence in our community, I'd say. Yorba Linda, Anaheim Hills, Placentia area, a little bit of Brea, a little bit of Villa Park, a little bit of Orange.
Do you still do dog walking as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we still are a functioning business. Out of the business, we have grown a nonprofit, created a nonprofit arm of kind of related to what we do through the business. After a couple years of the business and kind of growing and like I said, kind of becoming a little bit more prominent out in the streets, walking dogs, big packs of dogs, we started getting invited to some different events. The first one we got invited to was a senior living facility, and they had given us a call. They'd heard about us. They had a resident there whose daughter was one of our clients, and they were having a 4th of July parade, an event for the residents. And their activities director called up and said, "Oh, heard you have nice dogs. Can you bring some nice dogs to our event to visit with the seniors?" And so, of course, again, we were just the business at that time.
It sounds though, not only do you walk other people's dogs, but you have a lot of your own dogs.
We do have our own personal dogs. We live our life amongst the dogs, as you can imagine. And that's the other beauty of it, Darryl, is that this work that we're doing through the nonprofit, taking bonded packs of dogs to work with vulnerable groups like seniors and memory care, trauma survivors, at-risk teens, trafficking survivors, different groups like that. We've created a community and created a family. And this is the type of work that we would be doing for free every day in our own lives anyways. And we are doing this. We're around dogs all the time, and we've been through, challenging times, COVID and teenager life, the life of a teenager. So we've found that the dogs have really enhanced and helped us in our lives. And so once we started the business and we were invited to a couple of these, little community events, and we were just doing it because it's the right thing to do, we realized that this could impact others. This could impact our community in a really big way. The feedback that we got after these first couple events, the senior living facility, and then the teen group home that we were invited to, it was magical. And working with packs of dogs, the way the dogs interact with each other, the way they're a family of choice, community, cooperation, nonverbal communication through body language. It's really taught us a lot about ourselves. And when we go into these different kinds of difficult situations, groups of people, kind of having a hard time going through it, we can see what an impact the dogs are making. Dogs solve a lot of the world's problems, Darryl. Let's face it.
Oh yeah, no argument there. No, so
are you a dog person?
Of course. When you say packs of dogs, how many dogs do you typically, or does it vary depending on the group that you're visiting? I mean, you mentioned seniors, you mentioned kids that are at need, you mentioned, what else did you mention? Tell us maybe what are your top 4 people that you're helping out?
The number of dogs or the kind of dogs that we bring depends on the encounter, depends on what we're trying to accomplish. We started out, like I said, that very first time that we took the pack to an event.
Cass, how many?
We took 6 dogs in that first wave to Sunrise Senior Living here in Yorba Linda. We took the dogs to a 4th of July event, and there were other dogs there that were just brought by, other individuals. And our dogs were by far the best behaved, the most predictable, because in fact, they are dogs. The great thing about what we do and what's a little bit different, most of the time when you see and hear about therapy dogs, the handler of the dog is usually the dog's parent, the dog's owner. Well, most of the dogs that we're bringing into these encounters are not our personal dogs. The dogs have their own homes. So these dogs are volunteers. The families who work with us in the business, walking, training, we have relationships with these families. There's a teacher-student relationship between us and the dogs. So the dogs act however they want to act at home. You can raise your children any way you want. But when the dogs are with us at these encounters, we get them in a pack drive. We give them, they tap into that pack mentality where they're cooperating with each other. They're feeding off of each other's energy. And they know that they're there to work.
Is there a breed that is better suited for this type of work than others? Or
Yes.
breeds that aren't good for this type of work?
Right. So yes and no. And again, through all of this training that we're doing with dogs of all different shapes and sizes, we have close relationships and trusted relationships with boundaries and structure with these dogs. So maybe a dog who's a breed, like maybe some kind of a bully breed, or an Australian Shepherd that would typically be a little bit too busy to be considered a good candidate for therapy work or comfort work. We have a dog, Parker Lynn. She's one of the only females in our therapy pack. She goes off of the energy with the other dogs, and she's a great pack dog. Individually, Parker Lynn would maybe be a little bit too excitable to be an individual therapy dog, but she's a great pack dog.
And
she's
Parker
a great
Lynn
player.
Is the name of the dog, right?
The name
That's
of the
not a
dog,
breed.
Parker Lynn.
What breed is Parker Lynn?
She's an Australian Shepherd.
Shepherd. Okay. My dad had an
Yeah.
Australian Shepherd. Those are smart dogs.
They're brilliant dogs. She does great at agility. So what we would do with Parker Lynn, a dog like that, is that we would take her to a dynamic encounter, an outdoor space where we're working with able-bodied teenagers, for instance, or the group of kids that we work with on the spectrum. They're big, strong, able-bodied kids, and they teach a dog like Parker Lynn how to do perform on an agility course.
So there's two types of kids there. You've got kids that are on the spectrum. We explain that. And then you have kids that maybe are foster kids. What else?
Right. So that's a different group. So we work with groups of at-risk teens. That would be an encounter that we would personalize to that group. So those kids are probably going to be in a group talk therapy session. And we would have the dogs come and hang out with the kids, just kind of create more of a relaxing environment. Maybe there's a teenager there who doesn't necessarily want to interact with the group, might want to go play fetch with Elvis. Elvis is a white English cream retriever, and he loves the ball. He loves the tennis ball more than just about anything. And so maybe that would be a way to kind of keep that teen engaged in the group in a different way, and kind of give them a break, and so they can maybe come back to the group and be a little bit more ready to open up and interact with the counselors or the volunteers, the other adults, or the other teenagers in that group. That's one kind of encounter. Another kind is what I described about the kids on the spectrum. They're also their own group.
To delve into that spectrum, you mean like autism.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And that's in a classroom, or they're outside?
We have them outside in our training yard. We have a facility. We have two locations, two facilities, residential facilities in Yorba Linda that we use for the business. We park the vans there. That's kind of our home base, or we use it for office space. Mostly the business functions out in the community, out on the walks, on the trails, or the training happens in different individuals' homes. But we have a second location now. It's right across from the Nixon Library, kind of tucked back in a neighborhood there. And it's an equestrian property zoned for horses, which we haven't dug in too deep into that world yet. And that's a place that it's a residential facility as well. It's a full acre.
So people come to you?
That. So that's ideally when we set up these encounters, education or therapeutic encounters. Ideally, the group comes to us and works with the dogs in their home familiar environment.
The dogs
they train.
Yeah,
the dogs are in their own home environment.
It was really interesting because my dad's dog, he's known me forever. And every time I come over, bark, 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 bark. And we went on a little vacation and he wanted to bring his dog, Bailey. And I said, sure, that's okay. And of course, I'm fretting because I'm thinking, oh my goodness, we're going to have this dog at the hotel. It's
How's this going to go? Right.
Crazy. And by golly, we went there and got to the hotel, and Bailey didn't bark at all. And I thought to myself,
Oh,
it
interesting.
must have been because Bailey, there's one position when you're at your home, you're
Mhm.
protecting your home, you're
Right.
at somewhere else, it's not your home, you don't need to protect it. But that again was just a guess. Let me ask you this. What kind of training do you give these dogs? A certain amount of training? If so, how or what?
Since we started as a walking and training business, all the services we provide in the business, whether it's the pack walking service, the actual training, or like a daycare situation, or maybe some of these dogs will stay with us overnight and their families go on trips. Everything is structured and based on a training model. So in order to get, like I said, we started this concept kind of organically. We just started getting invited to places. Can you bring the pack of dogs? And so we hand selected the dogs that we already knew very, very well, that we walk on a almost a daily basis in the pack walking service, and that we have experience with training. And so we already knew the dogs well enough to know that the dogs are bonded together to each other, bonded to and trusting to us. So we can trust them going into a new space like the senior living facility or like the teen group home. We knew that the dogs, we could trust them to be focused on us and not distracted by the environment. So
Their temperament and everything. Yeah.
right. So we train the dogs, right, for obedience and behavior modifications, but not every dog is going to reveal themselves to be appropriate for what the foundation is doing. So people will come to us. Oh, can you train my dog to be a therapy dog, or can you train my dog to be in your group? I would love my dog to be involved in in the work that you're doing because it's so it's so meaningful. The answer is, let's see. I don't know. It's up to your dog. So, it doesn't always, it doesn't always, the dog doesn't always check all the boxes that we need. So it really depends. That's how it is for all dogs, even dogs that are going through service dog programs. There's a lot of money spent training a beautiful Labrador to become a service dog. And at the end, it might not meet the criteria.
Yeah, I had a friend that would take on dogs, and she would train them for the blind. She was in charge of.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, and it was I want to say a year or at least 6 months, and that was really interesting. So, give us a good story about a success story on a few things that have happened with either seniors or kids, and those are your two primary groups of people, or seniors and kids. Is that fair to say?
It started out where we were focused on the senior community, because that was the very first invitation we got, and that is where we saw us making a big impact at that very first event. And so we were reaching out to we started getting a lot of calls from senior living facilities. What we do at the senior centers now is, what's best about working at a senior facility would be that it's a great training ground for a new dog that we're trying to integrate into the pack, just to kind of get them used to this concept of going into a space and providing comfort, doing less instead of doing more. These dogs are trained to kind of do nothing at times. They need to know how to do nothing.
Right.
And going into a senior facility is a great training ground for them. So we'll do things like that at the senior centers. But our main focus, we're now at this point, and where we see the biggest impact could be, is mental health support for teenagers, victims of domestic violence. We say teenagers, at-risk youth. We just see in society in general that as these kids are getting closer to graduating from high school or even graduating from college, there's a lot of stress. What's going to happen? I'm going to be able to get a job. If they're in and out of the foster care system, the services are going to drop off, at 18, 21 years old. And there's a lot of anxiety, depression, coming out of COVID. There's a lot of issues with people just not even being able to interact with each other.
Do you go to individual houses? Do you let's say I've got a troubled teen, and she's depressed or something, or he's depressed, and I would want you to come over and bring your dogs. Is that something you're seeing right now, or
not currently? The bonded, pack of dogs. The dogs are trained to work together as
they come to you.
And so they come to us, or they're in groups. We did an event at Robin's Nest Teen Group Home in Huntington Beach, and we took the dogs there, and we did, an encounter where actually Isabella, our lead trainer, she's the founder of the business, and my daughter, she gave a little talk to the kids about her challenges with her mental health, anxiety, depression, her history of learning disabilities and not really doing well in college, not enjoying that, and deciding to turn her love for dogs into a business, and believing in herself, believing that she could turn this concept, something that she loved, that she would be doing for free anyways, into something where she could actually support herself. And so that's what that encounter looked like for that particular group. When we work with the kids on the spectrum, the way that looks with this particular group is that the kids want to be outside. They want to come to us. Their teacher brings them. She's a homeschool special ed teacher. She's an incredible woman, and her dog's one of our walking clients. He's not in the therapy group. He's not appropriate for therapy or comfort work. He's a great dog, but he's his own dude. And so she brings the kids, and she has an individual education plan for each student and goals for each student. And so we work together on lesson plans and how each visit is going to go based on what the kids need from us, what dogs we're going to have available. So we're all constantly innovating. And
there's like an interview process.
Yes.
You get a call. How does this typically work? You get a phone call, someone reaches out to you, and then you ask them, what do you ask them? You ask them, okay, what are the age of the kids? Walk me through that kind of process.
We approached a group like Olive Crest or like Waymakers. So we just did an event with Waymakers where they saw us at another.
What are Waymakers?
So Waymakers is a group. They started in Orange County about 50 years ago, and they support victims of violent crimes, trafficking,
all ages,
abuse. All ages, yes.
Okay.
And it's a huge organization. It's incredible, the work that they do. They have a teen group home in Huntington Beach, actually, and they have, several different types of things that they do in facilities all throughout Orange County, and I believe California, if I'm not mistaken. So Waymakers had seen us at a wellness event. We were just there, community outreach, just getting the word out. We had the dogs at a wellness event. People were just coming up and hanging out with these well-trained dogs, asking questions. And we were just passing out information and just, interacting with the community. And someone from that organization, Waymakers, had seen us and wanted to partner with us to create an encounter that would support their groups. So that's how that came about. The Robin's Nest example that I gave you, the teen group home, that group, Robin's Nest, did reach out to us and said, we have
word of mouth.
Word of mouth, exactly. Okay. It's been pretty much word of mouth, but the mental health crisis, the foster care system, victims of human trafficking, domestic violence, PTSD, and veterans, and pretty much all kinds of groups are suffering with PTS. It's the word of mouth is enough, because these types of comforting encounters, animal assisted interventions, are needed in so many different places. So it's almost as if we can kind of sit still and let the groups hear about us sometimes, or we also reach out to others if we see an organization where we can see how our dogs can enhance that experience. I'm gonna be on the phone with a therapist in the next few days. She has a private therapy practice, and she fully believes in the power of animals and dogs to bring her traumatized clients through that maybe a little bit faster.
That's what I was actually going to ask you. Is there, I'm guessing then that there's even data, there's actual data that shows this. I remember seeing a show about troubled teens from the inner city that
Mhm.
were and had the kind of had committed crimes, and then
Right.
what they did was they brought them out to a farm with horses, and it
Yes.
just changed everything.
Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
it's kind of similar to that, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's even what we've done, Darryl, is since no one else is working with packs of trained dogs that we can find, no one else is doing this work. We don't have anybody to exactly emulate or commiserate with or copy. So we've reached out to single therapy dog organizations, which we've learned a lot from. They're beautiful organizations that are doing incredible work. But where we found more similarities is in the equine, the horse therapy world. And what our dogs do as a bonded pack, the dogs move together like a single organism. It's a lot more like what we're seeing equine therapy accomplishing. It's a lot more similar to that than a single therapy dog going into a children's hospital or into a
Interesting.
hospice and providing comfort and emotional regulation, right? So the dogs, I mean, a lot of them can do individual therapy.
But it's a different, when they're in a pack, it's a different dynamic, is what you're saying. That's interesting.
So that's what we say that we call it the power of the pack. And the pack mentality, the pack drive, dogs are pack animals. We've learned so much about ourselves and the way we should be interacting with each other from watching the dogs interact. There's a leader, right? There's an alpha.
Part 2 comes out next week. Stay tuned, only on the Jones Zone.